Hi, welcome. I'm Dr. Amy Glaser-Carpenter, and we have a special guest tonight, Molly Freeland. Molly is the owner of Be Inspired Yoga Studio, and she is a certified yoga instructor. She is here tonight to talk to us a little bit about yoga. So we have yoga as part of both our stress management and exercise series. As you'll see in this interview tonight, there are lots and lots of benefits of yoga. Yoga, not only the movement, but the stretching and the balance and the breath work all help improve multiple areas of your mental and physical health. So when you're moving through yoga poses, you're using your muscles, which help with strength. You're increasing blood flow. You are working on balance, which helps with proprioception, and that can help prevent falls as you get older. Lots and lots of benefits to yoga. The breath work we'll talk about a little bit later too, but multiple benefits of that. So let's get into this interview with Molly. Welcome, Molly.
Hi, thanks for having me, Dr. Carpenter.
Yeah, thank you for coming. So maybe first you could tell us, for some people that have never practiced yoga, maybe you could explain what is yoga?
So it's very simple. Yoga is a mind and a body practice. And so what that means is that you and so taking it a step further, you're connecting the movements of your body with breath techniques or breath work. And combining those two aspects is what makes the practice the mind and body connection. And most of our yoga classes also end with relaxation, or all of them do, in a meditation. Mm-hmm. The word yoga means to yoke, and union, we define that. So union, connect. And so if you think about body and mind, we are connecting and bringing together those pieces, the movement, the breath work, and the meditation.
Yeah, that's great. So, and you mentioned the breath, and I'd like to talk about that for just a minute. I teach heart math to my patients as well, and that is a practice where we use breath to help move ourselves from a depleted state to a rejuvenating state. So basically, we're using our breath, this slow, intentional, deep breath that is, approximately 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, so slower than you would normally breathe, to bring your heart into this coherent state, which is this state of relax and rejuvenate and repair. And I know yoga also uses that slow, intentional ujjayi breath, correct, to help kind of bring you in your body and your heart and your whole physical system into that kind of coherent repair state.
Yes, very true. And so every yoga class, the teacher will talk about breath and just the simple observation of your breath. And, if we start to think about when we, in our busy lives, and then we come into a yoga class or step onto our yoga mat, our breath is going to be shorter and shallow. And what we do throughout our practice is really draw awareness to the breath, to our individual breath. And then the hope is then, kind of keep revisiting the breath and using the breath as a tool in our practice. So yeah, very much in line with what you're saying. And from a teaching perspective, what I see, and I know my fellow teachers would say the same, we see a shift in people when they come into practice, as when we feel our own practice and we're doing our own work. And so the shift is, short or shallow, and towards the end of your practice, when you're in final relaxation, there's just this very, calm feeling that most people feel at the very end of their practice. And that is that rejuvenating breath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and part of that is probably from the breath work, from the benefits of that coherent state that you're in physically, but also from that turning inside, right? So instead of all of these things in the world kind of coming at you, you are kind of tuning in with your body, with your mind, with your breath, and really, really listening to your body.
Yes, absolutely. And that's where the real magic happens, is when you can unplug and you can really connect to all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And yes.
So I remember my first yoga class. I was in college and I took it as an elective because I was interested and had never been to a yoga class before. But I remember feeling so relaxed after that class and I loved it. And up until then, my main form of exercise had been very kind of depleting, like hard as I can go until I'm exhausted. And then that felt relaxing because I was exhausted. But this was different. This was kind of like I was calm and relaxed, but rejuvenated at the same time. And it was, I loved it. So I fell in love with it then. And then my practice kind of continued. So I use it, you know, as a form of relaxation. So as a form of mental health, but also physically to help with strength and balance and flexibility, cardiovascular benefits. Why do you practice yoga?
Yeah, all of the same reasons. And I would say initially when I started practicing maybe 7 years ago, I went to a class with some friends and, you know, really didn't know what I was getting into. But I had a young family and I was just looking for an opportunity to get out of the house. And, but I was doing a lot of biking at the time. So yoga started to really complement that physical mountain biking that I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so the reasons were very physical at first. And, you know, just, wow, you know, I just really need to loosen up. I'm so tight. And then as time went on, what I started to notice was a shift that happened, you know, with a weekly practice. I would practice once or twice a week. But I would notice that the way that I reacted and responded to stressors in life, whether it was a small family or a young family, a work, money, whatever, the way I reacted was very different. And there was, you know, the only thing that I could relate it to was yoga. That was the only thing that I had added to my life. So those benefits, yeah.
And why do you think that is? Do you think that was because you were taking more of like an observer point of view, or what do you think changed that perspective for you?
Yeah, I think what happens when you practice yoga, you are you're really tuning in, and so you're focused on and observing your breath, and you're just kind of being with yourself in a sense. And so I think the way, you know, you notice that there's, you know, for example, when you're in a tree pose in a yoga class and you fall out of tree and you're like, oh man, you know, like that's the worst thing ever. And you realize it's not really that bad. It's just tree pose, right? So I think that, you know, an argument at home, it just became very much like an overlay of, you know, just observing like how I was reacting, what things I was doing in my life, what foods I was eating. I think yoga is a starting point for a lot of different changes in health and it's a really, really great complement.
Yeah. So I remember one yoga teacher, I was trying to go into a handstand and they said, with no attachment to the outcome. And to me, that was like the first time anything, you know, physical, or in any area, someone had said no attachment to the outcome. And I thought, wow, that's powerful, right? And that's what yoga is about, right? You're just practicing and you're tuning in and you're curious and you're listening to your body and no attachment to the outcome, which carries over into your life, right? When you don't have that attachment. So yeah, I definitely think, like you said, these lessons in yoga carry over. And the other thing that I think I find super helpful that carries over into my life is the intention setting. I know when you teach a class in the beginning, you always say, you know, let's set an intention for this practice. And I love that because it's a timeout to kind of tune in, okay, what do I need to be better at in my life right now? Where can I work harder? Where do I need to set my attention? You know, what I usually am hoping for is to be more present in the moment, right? Because a lot of times it's easy to kind of be distracted. In that yoga class, you're present in that moment, right?
Right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, and that's very true. And, you know, it is, and you mentioned practice. It's, you know, you'll hear it's a yoga practice. And so meaning there's never going to be a perfect, it's never, you're never going to attain or obtain like the perfect yoga class. Like it is, you know, you are just practicing and you are strengthening and you're moving through with intention and a mindful breath and movement. And it really does, you know, reflect how you respond and what happens in your life off of the mat. Yeah, the intention is powerful.
Yeah. So someone coming to a new class, I know you mentioned sometimes people can be kind of intimidated coming to their first class. What advice would you give someone coming to their first yoga class?
Yeah, so I would say, you know, your first yoga class is really very exciting. It's a start of a really great journey. And so I would say maybe try to put your inhibitions aside, which are all of the inhibitions that many of us have. You know, I'm not flexible enough. I'm not thin enough. I'm, you know, not strong enough. I don't have the right yoga clothes, whatever that is. See if you can put that aside. And, you know, I would really tell, and, you know, put that aside and just, and look at the schedule and find the class that really seems like it fits best for you, where you are and what you're looking for. And like you said earlier, you know, if you're looking for an energetic and, you know, a really athletic physical practice, you're going to go to a power class. You might even try a vinyasa class. Those are classes we have on the schedule that are, you're moving with breath. That's what vinyasa means, breath with movement. And, you know, if you're wanting something gentle and a little, you know, more dialed down, you're going to go to a yin, a class where you would hold poses for a longer period of time, maybe a restorative class or a gentle class. So I would really encourage people to even try a basics class. We'll offer those several times throughout the year. And just, you know, really take that step forward, bring a friend. Everything's better with a friend or a partner. So, you know, bring someone, you know, male, female, it doesn't matter. But, you know, just, it's, you know, there's a whole, you know, there's so much that gets in the way of coming to a yoga class. And most of the time it's just our own thoughts, like, about it.
Yeah, so. Right. So to let people know it's not intimidating, right? And right. People in the class are supportive, and it's a very supportive community, and there's no judgment. Yeah, you're just finding your own edge, right? And finding that balance and resting when you need to.
Absolutely, right.
And with COVID, I know you're offering classes in the park. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and then kind of transitioning back into the studio?
Yes, we are. So our schedule is very limited right now. We just are trying to get our processes in place. And just like every business and many yoga studios in our fitness wellness facilities in downtown and in the area, we've struggled with trying to figure out what the right thing is to do is. So we're just following the guidance of limited capacity in the studio. We're offering a virtual live stream class. So most of our classes are live streamed as well. And then the outdoor yoga classes are so wonderful. And those are, to me, the most unintimidating classes because you're out in nature, fresh air. It's just a really great environment. So we'll continue doing that as long as weather holds out, maybe even into Christmas time. We'll just be zipped up in our coats. yeah, we are easing back into it, and teachers will start to add classes when they're comfortable. And just we're just keeping an eye on the local community's health, and yeah.
And the virtual classes too are a great way to kind of ease your way into yoga. If you kind of want to try it out and see what it's like. I've done your class virtually and it was great. It feels like you're right there. So yeah, so that's a great way people can try it out as well. Good. So we talked a little bit about the physical and mental benefits of yoga. And you probably see these transformations in your clients too, people that come to the yoga studio, not only from the beginning to the end of class, but kind of over time as well. Do you see that?
Yeah, most definitely. I think one of the best things, the most rewarding things I've heard recently was one of the participants in a class. She mentioned that when she came to her first yoga class 7 years ago when we opened, how nervous she was when she came in. She said, I had retired and I didn't know what I was getting into, but I knew that this would be really good for me. It was a doctor recommended it. And I was so nervous when I came in. And she just told me this past week, she said, 7 years later, when your doors reopened and I came in, I felt like I was home. And I felt this really heartwarming feeling. And to me, there's, that's really meaningful. So, everyone feels kind of that little intimidation walking into a yoga class. And what you realize is that we're all just normal people trying to be our healthiest, best self. And so, yeah, I mean, I do see a shift in people and their thoughts, but also in the class. I mean, from the beginning of class, and even someone that regularly practices, you start to notice even that little bit of a shift. And it's very rewarding to see that. And it's part of the reason why, going back to why it's so important to have this in our community. So everybody comes to yoga for a different reason. And it could be to manage chronic pain. It could be to manage stress. Some people come to lose weight. There's so many different pieces. And, it's always really great to uncover more that comes up all on its own that you didn't even expect. So
yeah, and the reason you're there might even change during the class, right?
Yeah, right.
You think you're there for one reason, and then no, definitely. I know exactly what you're talking about. That feeling by the end of class where just kind of you feel centered and relaxed, and I do love that. And you mentioned community. That is another big reason I like to go to yoga too. It's just a very supportive, caring community. And like you said, everyone's there just trying to be the best version of themselves. So
the community piece is another really big part of the studio. And of any studio that and of yoga in general. The community piece is very strong.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different levels, and the classes you offer are very varied, from needing to get rid of excess energy to kind of needing to replete your energy, and different teachers, different times, different days. So lots of options for people who are interested in checking it out, right? Yeah. So any other things you want to mention? Any other remarks or comments about yoga or about the studio?
I would just say, if I didn't stress enough, just to read the descriptions of our classes and, really find an appropriate class for what you're looking for. And you can try all of the classes out. Our teachers will give you guidance. If you have an injury, they might give you some guidance, but if your doctor's approved after that injury that you can go to yoga, reading the description kind of allows you to find out, or allows you to be in the right class for what you need. So, And because we're so unique in the fact that we have these great teachers and everyone offers a different style of yoga in our small community, it really is a gift to have that many different styles in one space. So my advice would be to read the schedule, make sure you know what you're getting into, and just have fun with the practice. And you know, what a great compliment to, you know, your health and wellness. If that's kind of where you're heading in 2021, yoga is a good piece to add into to complete where you're headed.
Yeah, that's great advice. So you mentioned injuries, so I'm just going to speak on that for a second, because I think a lot of people do go into yoga with some injury, right? They might have, you know, I had an ankle injury. I was nursing. I know one of my friends has a shoulder injury. Sometimes people are in there with a back injury. So the community of yoga is very supportive of that, and just, you know, just taking a rest or not doing that pose. And there's no judgment. You don't have to do it like everyone else. It's just expected that you are tuning into yourself and listening to yourself. And I know you give that advice at the beginning of class. And I know sometimes our egos get in the way, right? And we want to try to do stuff. But the most important thing is, right, finding that balance between effort and ease and not pushing ourselves too hard. So that doesn't mean you can't go to class with an injury, but knowing that you're going to not push yourself to positions that might hurt, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and you're going to be, you know, when you're practicing, you're going to be your best teacher. No one knows where you're coming from. Our bodies are all different. And so, yeah, that's really important to listen to your body.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you, Molly. Thanks for this interview. I greatly appreciate it. And yeah, I'll put the link to Be Inspired Yoga Studio on this. So thanks for your time.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.